it seems surreal. It still seems surreal now. I mean, that moment when I put that phone down, I can't even describe the feeling. Like Tom says, it was the best day of his life. I mean, that literally for me was the best day of my life. I mean, I can only describe it as perhaps like winning the lottery.
Or catching the Burfield Common.
The Thinking Tackle Podcast.
Okay, we're live. Tom Stokes, Tom Rossiter. Welcome to the podcast, guys.
Hello again, Simon.
Hello again, Tom. How's it going?
I'm good, mate. It's good to be back.
You said 11 months since you last came on.
Yeah, 11 months. Time flies, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. And quite a lot's gone on in your life since then as well.
It has indeed. I don't know, people can probably see I've got a new hat.
He's got a new hat on.
No, there's a lot gone on. Yeah, there is a lot going on. We'll cover a bit of that, I'm sure, in the.
We will do. And Tom Rossiter, you're the sponsored angler coordinator.
Yeah, that's it.
So you know, we'll get a bit of an insight into what it's like doing your job, because you have to work with all these guys, don't you? And you get to see it all, don't you?
Yeah, see it all. So yeah, we can go into all that, what I do, what I get up to.
Yeah, no, that'd be good. Look forward to that. You've had some fish. You've caught some fish recently. Well, you're always catching fish, Tom, aren't you? But last weekend you had a few out of St Ives.
I did, yeah. It was last Friday last week. I was actually on that Longreach Lake. To anybody that might know it, I caught the biggest mirror in there, Starburst, and the one that everybody wants, the fully scaled, both over 40 pounds, mega carp. Bit of a funny story behind it, really, in that I wasn't actually supposed to be fishing that lake.
We're looking at a picture now.
Oh yeah, but it's the first time I've actually seen that picture.
That's amazing.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, as I say, it was a funny one. I'd gone back to St Ives to actually fish the shallow pit, and I did one night on shallow, and Tom actually came down to see me, and we went for a walk over Longreach, which is the lake next door. I wound in about lunchtime from shallow. We went for a walk next door on Longreach, and we actually found a few in the weed. Funnily enough, Tom actually spotted the first fish, and I don't know, there's just something about that lake. It's a mega cool lake, big open pit. Very low stock. I've missed that type of fishing a bit lately. Like all spring I've been sat down Wasing, which is quite a small lake, and I just fancied to go on there. I did my second night of my trip on Longreach. Didn't have any joy, but yeah, basically I carried it on. I did the following week. I actually fished for the whole week the following week through some really good weather conditions, saw a few showing, etc. And then, there was one area of the lake that I kept clocking them turn up in the weed in a swim called the Beach. Like every day the sun came out and they turn up in the weed. There on 3 separate occasions I saw them there over the course of a week. Anyway, I left the lake, came back a few days later, and there was a fresh southerly forecast. I mean, I'm only talking a week ago now. In fact, it was this time last week, wasn't it? Wednesday, yeah. This time last week, I went down there Wednesday afternoon last week. That southerly was forecast to blow into that swim where I kept seeing them on the surface, and I didn't do anything fancy. I went in that swim, I took pop-ups out for drops, simple fishing. The wind picked up, the carp came with it, and I lost my first bite the following morning to a cut-off. That was the first bite I'd had from the lake other than bream. There's a lot of bream in there. I lost my first bite the following morning. After that, I caught a 22 pound stocky. There was a lot of weed in front of me, in front of that swim. That's why they kept getting there, because of the amount of weed in front of the swim. But that's why I got cut off. That's the 22 pound stocky. I had a nightmare landing it because of the weed. So I spent that day clearing the weed, got the rods out that afternoon, and within half an hour of getting the rods out, I caught Starburst, which is the biggest fish in the lake. And then the following morning I caught the fully
That's amazing. How do you tackle this? Like so you said like clearing the wheel. Are you actually clearing areas to actually put baits, or just make it easier to get lines in the water?
Yeah, exactly that. Basically, there was a big sort of band of weed in front of the swim that had reached the surface, and it all got like that silkweed amongst it. You know, when you get that like lime green silkweed in the weed. You can actually see it in that picture. And it had created like a carpet. I mean, it didn't look too bad. It was only a small band of it in front of the swim. And when I first dropped in there, because it was on a bit of a whim, sort of hoping they were going to hoping that they was going to turn up on this wind, I didn't clear the weed. I just flicked over the top of it. But as I say, as it happens, one cut me off. Had a nightmare landing the second one. So I just spent the day clearing it, dragged it all in.
You were cut off on the weed?
Cut off, yeah. Basically, that lake, I've never seen a lake. There's a lot of zebra mussels in the lake, and they even infest the weed. The weed is full of these little zebra mussels. I've never fished anywhere else quite like it. And it was the zebra mussels that cut me off. That was £20 braid as well.
It's deceptive, isn't it, that?
It is.
You don't realise, do you? You know, when you see those mussels in a weed like that. So are you fishing for another thing that you said actually, Tom, was that Thomas uses a marker float a lot. So would you go into a swim like that and chuck a float out there?
In that situation, one of my rods I used a marker float because it was a bit long, like it was a bit longer and to the. I mean, it depends on the type of fishing I'm doing. In this instance, I was just boilie fishing. Two of my rods were very short range, so they were literally just cast for drops. And I just catapulted 18 millers in the vicinity. But my right hand rod, which I actually caught a 27.5 common on while we were about to do the pictures of this one, that was a bit longer. It was about 60 yards out to the right, where I had seen one show. And again, I just wanted to chuck a pop up there for a drop and bait it. But I still want the bait relatively accurate. You know, the further you go, the harder it is to sort of. I just like to know where my rig's landed, so I use the marker float as a marker. Basically took the marker out, bait the marker with a catapult. It's all about accuracy, really. Yeah. I use a marker float when I want to be accurate. And
what was your observations with Tom? You know, when he was using a marker float, you were saying that pulling the float back and getting feedback off of the bottom and stuff was something that the guys noticed.
Yeah, I mean, I've not actually seen Tom use a marker float. I don't know where that. I don't know if you're getting confused with Luke Stevenson, maybe.
Oh right, okay. Was it Luke you were talking about? Oh, sorry. Oh, that was a good start. Oh right, okay.
Yeah, no, I've not. Seen
I do use a marker float a bit, so it did sort of. I have recently.
But I think that story was Luke.
Oh right, okay. Well, we need to get Luke in here then, don't we?
But an interesting thing that you did, I noticed you did do when you said you got cut off on that first fish. You obviously changed your approach, which. A lot of people might not have changed, but you obviously landed everything after that.
Yeah, key. So basically, the first bite obviously cut me off in the weed. So I ended up putting big long armour cord leaders on, 30-pound sinking armour cord braid, just for that extra bit of abrasion resistance in the weed. Funny enough, a mate of mine actually fished this lake. About 5 years ago. He caught these fish about 5 years ago, and I can remember it. He was using mono, and he had to do the same. His first few bites cut him off. At the time, he said to me that he was getting cut off on the bars, but I've actually fished the swim now that he caught them fish from, and I don't think it was the bars. I think it's these zebra mussels in the weed. But anyway, he ended up putting armour cord leaders on and landed everything he hooked after that. So in a way, in hindsight, I should have gone straight in with these leaders, but I was using braid, sub braid, £20, and I thought it'd be enough, but obviously it wasn't. But yeah, changed to the leaders, and then, like I say, I had 4 bites after that. £22 stocky, Starburst, the big one, fully scaled, the one everyone wants, then a £27 common, and yeah, landed them all, no problems, and That's pretty much it on that lake, really.
I know the way you like to fish as well, because I think when we were talking like last year, you were in the middle of like a baiting campaign. But I mean, so you're not quite in that sort of time of the year yet when you're.
Well, normally I would be in that baiting campaign sort of time of the year, but I'd only just started on that lake. In fact, the week before, as I say, I'd done the whole week, and that was sort of my plan. I'd gone down there thinking, I got in the middle of the lake, there was big low pressure came in, big southwesterly wind. I hadn't been pre-baiting it, but it was an area of the lake that in my previous trip I'd seen a few odd signs out, in the middle. And I just thought, I've got all week, big weather front coming in. And that was the swim, actually, that my mate caught all the big ones from in September. So it was a little bit earlier, but I thought I'm just going to sit it out, loads of bait in the pond. And it just never happened. To be honest, it probably would have happened if I'd have continued with that. And if it wasn't for me catching them the way I did, I would still be doing that, bait in the middle of the pond. That would have been my plan of attack. But, as I say, it was an off chance, really, an off sighting. I kept seeing them in that weed. I'd seen the weather rolling in. It was going to be a big southerly, big warm wind. The first good southerly, sort of south-southeast it was, but it was the first good wind we'd had for weeks. And I don't know, I just had an inkling that they might get into this beach swim. I had nothing to lose, so I went down there, got in the beach, flicked pop-ups out for drops on the end of the wind, and caught them. I mean, it sounds easy. It's not always that easy, and you could do that 100 times. On most big, low-stop, big pitch, you could do that kind of fishing 100 times, drop on winds, flick pop-ups out, and they just wouldn't turn up. You wouldn't catch them. But
how much time do you think you've got on those winds? So from when they're coming in, how much quality fishing time do you normally get?
I think the first 12 hours, 24 hours on a big. I mean, it's an hard one to say because I've just come back from Norton Disney, and they're young carp, quite deep lakes. They just sit on the end of southwesterlies for weeks on end, jumping out. They don't seem to move. But I don't know. That doesn't happen on the. Pressured carp don't sit on the end of winds for long. I'd say generally the first 12 hours is the best. After 24 hours of a new wind blowing, it's sort of the best bit's gone.
And relationships between sort of different lakes. I mean, do you find that the bigger, more exposed lakes you tend to be sort of more prominent for that, or can you still get the same results on smaller lakes?
Yeah, in fact, some of the smaller lakes I've fished, especially ones that don't get much wind, respond more to the wind when they get it because they get less of it. And bigger pits, they can I don't know. It's hard. Big pits can be hard to predict because I found a lot of the time they don't like the wind. Englefield, where I fished a couple of years ago for the Baby Black, that was quite a shallow, big pit. And they did occasionally get on winds. Very occasionally. But more often than not, they'd be on the back of them. I don't know if it's because of the shallow water and the I don't know what it is. But yeah, they don't always get on winds, that's all I'll say. What happened there down Long Reach the other week, that doesn't happen like that very often.
Yeah. Tom, so your job, obviously, it's quite an interesting job, isn't it? So
yeah.
How did you come to sort of get into being a sponsored angler coordinator?
I guess a bit of luck. A few years ago, I had a job, not in the fishing industry, obviously fished myself, followed Corder, and it was just an office job where I'm based in Suffolk. And one day I just saw an ad on Corder Instagram advertising for the sponsored angler position. So obviously I thought, well, why not go for it? I thought I had absolutely no chance with minimal experience. Sent a CV in and a cover letter, and the guys at Corder got in touch with me and said, we're keen, come in for an interview. I was like, bloody hell, So I remember waiting outside the building in my suit, shirt and tie and that. And I remember Dan walking past to do the interview, and I was just like, this is so surreal and weird. And met Dan for the first time. I think I was in the office for 3 hours just chatting to him about fishing, and I thought, this is like the best interview ever. Asking me fishing questions.
Did you relax with him quite quickly?
Yeah, instantly got on with him, and John Wilkes as well, who's now my boss, the marketing manager. Got on with both really well. It's a very relaxed interview. Like I said, pretty much just spoke about fishing. A few sort of.
How many people would you expect to be going for a job like that?
I don't know. I imagine quite a few people have probably applied, and probably a lot of people a lot more qualified than me. Like I said, I had no experience, but I was just honest with Dan. I think he knew I was passionate and keen. Had the interview, thought it went really well, and then I had a day out on the bank with Rob Burgess as the second part of my interview. Had to do a feature, a day in the life of a Corder coach and top tips for fishing farlows, I think. And
so you had no experience whatsoever.
Literally
so
none.
You had to sort of bumble something together.
I had an office job. Just used to work on Excel spreadsheets, doing like stock controls.
It's a bit of a jump, that, isn't it?
I felt well out of my depth doing it, and I an old friend of mine used to be really good with a camera from school, and he sort of helped me out, and I booked in with him a day before I had the interview, and I was like, you need to tell me how to use a camera because I've got to do a feature for Corder tomorrow. I had tickets for England rugby, the Scotland game. So I had to sell the ticket. It's just a nightmare timing. But I think all that sort of helped the preparation.
Did you tell anyone that as well?
I did sneak it into the interview to Dan.
You
Needed to know that.
Yeah,
So I think that definitely went in my favour. So and then I remember, so I had done all the interview process. It was like a 3-month process. It was quite stressful.
3 months.
Yeah, from when I first applied to the final interview stage, and it was quite intense. And I can remember just how nervous I was that week, just staring at my phone, praying that I was going to get a good call.
Sorry, how good was your feature with Rob in the end? Then were you?
I guess it was all right. Yeah, I think it was good. I mean, it was stressful. Like I say, I remember a day with Rob, and then I got home. I mean, Rob blanked as well.
All right.
On my feature, and there was 2 of us left in the interview, me and this other guy, and he blanked, and I left. And as I left, the other guy turned up, and Rob had a 30 straight away. So I was like,
You're like, oh, brilliant.
This guy's gonna have such a good feature. He's got a 30-pounder. Thought there's no chance here, but yeah, managed to knock up this feature with the help of my mum and dad as well. And I remember getting that phone call from John Wilkes saying that I got the job at Corder, and I was working in my other job at the time. Walked into the meeting room, took this phone call. You know, in my head I'm going crazy, like this is amazing. But I was just like, yeah, brilliant, thanks a lot. See you Monday, kind of thing. And that was the best day of my life, probably.
Wow.
And told my family and friends who, you know, my dad's an angler, so he was absolutely buzzing. So that's how I got into it. You know, couldn't believe it really, and thrown straight in the deep end. You know, within 2 weeks I was on a thinking tackle in Germany with Dan and Daryl, and
they told you you'd be out on assignment with them.
Just straight away. Got all the kit I needed. They were brilliant. You know, all the latest camera kit, and it was pretty much teach yourself. I mean, lucky enough to work with some really talented guys, so they're, you know, everyone's really supportive and have helped me a lot. But
is there a lot of structure to what you do, or is it
not
very
really?
spontaneous?
No, I mean it's a brilliant job because they trust me. Certainly now, you know, you're trusted to just get on with it to an extent. They trust you. You know, it's really good. But yeah, there's no structure. You know, hours are all over the place. Could be working weekends, nights. But you know, just love what I do. So it never feels like work. It generally doesn't.
Tom, what's the craziest call out that you've had? Because I know that you work. Sometimes, you know, you could be called out through the night. It's whenever somebody catches a fish, usually, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it could be at any time. You know, it's
Tom. You've probably done that a few times, haven't you?
What's that?
Recently.
Called him out recently.
A couple of times.
For those 40-pounders last week, it was my first day's holiday for about 3 months, and I was fishing. And what was it? 6:30, 7 in the morning. Tom, I've got one. And I was like, oh. So I was on fish as well. So I had to reel in, got a flat tyre to go and fight. But you know,
so you were fishing. So you have to sacrifice your own fishing.
days holiday, but. I love
Tom,
that.
you owe him one a bit.
I know. I
you?
did feel a bit guilty about that.
No.
Only a little bit.
I'll be honest.
That's like the highlight of my job. Because when I first started, I'm a new kid on the block. No one knows who I am. Not respected, I guess. And it's like you need to sort of prove yourself to these guys so they give you these calls.
So what were they looking for? I mean, obviously, so you've got a carp fishing background and stuff, obviously. But
yeah, I mean, I think for the job you mean, what's Dan looking for?
It seems very personality kind of orientated.
I think you need to be the right person.
With
Yeah, of course. I think it's man management's essential. I think it's just that willingness, that passion, just willing to learn. I don't think they're looking for the most experienced guy on paper, but as long as you just got to work hard and want it. And obviously you need to know a little bit about fishing, which is it's such a niche role because you need to sort of be at that level where you can communicate and talk to these guys on the level, but at the same time they don't want someone who's destined for fame. They need someone who's prepared to do all the work behind the camera, but not fame hungry to sort of jump out and.
What about building up a rapport with these? Because I mean, you've got some high profile anglers. How many sponsored anglers have we got now?
We've got there's about 60 probably in terms of guys who've got accounts with us. I mean, we've tried to narrow that down a little bit because it's so difficult and it's not fair on everyone.
So you've liaised with all of these guys?
Yeah, I liaise with all these guys, you know, speak to most of them every week.
Right.
But there's, you know, some are really, really good friends now. Like I speak to Tom, you know, almost every day pretty much now, you know, and there's plenty of the lads I speak to, and it's really nice because you build friendships. You're not just like work colleagues. They're like, become your mates and you can have banter with them about anything. So it is really nice. You know, that's probably the best part of the job, building friendships and, but just managing these people because every single angler is totally different. They're all individuals, so you've just got to have that sort of, because you could be out with one person and you could chat about football with that person, and you go out with another person and they could be going through a really hard time with their family, and you have to have that conversation. And you go out with someone like Tommy, just constantly fishing, like catching all the time. So it's like all these different people.
And what about, obviously getting these guys to understand that they need to be working with you. I mean, You know,
Yeah, it takes time.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, and because when I first started, it was like my aim to get to the level, now where I get the phone calls. But it didn't happen overnight. You have to work with these guys, gain their trust, I think, so they know you can take a photo.
Does that surprise you that sponsored anglers aren't just willing? They know what they're sponsored, so they should know what their jobs are anyway.
No, they are good, but at the same time, they're anglers, aren't they? And I think, let's be honest, anglers are selfish people. I think generally, it's not there's plenty. I think there's not many families that wish their husband was out on the bank.
I think what it is obviously.
It's gonna fight now.
Obviously, we put a lot of time and effort into catching these big carp, and people are going to have people that they can trust to take the pictures naturally, aren't they? Some people who've been fishing a long time would have had certain people they have probably rang for their pictures for years, and Tom's got to, like he says, gain that trust so that I can understand, I'll rang Tom straight away because he takes incredible pictures, but I can understand what he's saying in that, you put a lot of time and effort into catching those fish, and people want people they can trust to take those pictures, don't they?
And share the moment. You want your mate there. Don't, like you said, there's probably your mates you've been sharing that buzz with for years and years. And
you don't want to be.
I just rock up. And,
you don't want a miserable sod turning up, do you? Being all miserable.
So, yeah,
definitely.
forming that friendship is key to getting these phone calls. But yeah, when I first started, it wasn't necessarily about the phone calls. It was more on the film shoots, doing the marketing stuff. But it's now led to that. But my photography skills when I started, I didn't have a clue what I was doing with the camera. Literally, I still don't really. I definitely wing it, but I'm not like some of these guys.
That's
in the
nice
office.
though, isn't it? That they're going to employ somebody so they're employing you more on the passion and the potential side of things.
Yeah, I think as long as you click with the guys around you, they're willing. Because again, we're on some of these film shoots. You could be spending maybe up to 2 weeks in quite an intense environment working with these guys. You literally are living with them 24 hours a day.
And what about going into a film shoot then? Are you always around on those?
Yeah, we try and balance it. We've got a few cameramen, videographers and that, but I usually do most of the thinking tackles or masterclass. We sort of split it between a few of us, but they are good to work on. But yeah, they're very intense. They're hard shoots to work on because we've got such high standards, and they're at prime fishing time, so we don't get to fish, which is a bloody nightmare. But
so being an Encore, sponsored angler coordinator, I mean, what's the biggest sacrifice you've had to make?
Well, I guess going back to what Toby said earlier about, I mean, we'll go through some of the call outs I've had probably, but you have to make huge sacrifices, and it certainly it affects your relationships. But luckily, I've got a very understanding girlfriend. And first thing Dan said to me, you've got to have a family or a girlfriend or wife that supports what you do. But I mean, I got engaged last month, and
congratulations, mate.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, congratulations.
Yeah, we took her away to a hotel. Hadn't been away for a long time with obviously COVID and things. So took her away to a hotel, and I did put a text on our WhatsApp group just to lads, just saying, "Oh, no one give me a phone call tonight."
So you got all the sponsored anglers on a group. And everything.
And I think it was about 6 a.m. Luke Stevenson phoned me, and I literally, my missus just looked at me as the phone rang. She knew exactly what it was. It was Luke, and I just thought, oh, no. It's like, right, mate, and he's just like, oi, oi. It's like, what you got? And he's like, mate, I've got a real good one. He goes, Lucy the leather, and I was like, and I know what fish that is. It's like, it looks like the dustbin. That is my
you'd like to catch that
perfect
top,
carp for me.
That's a proper carp.
It's just like the old dustbin, isn't it?
It's
Small tail,
it's
like
so similar. Yeah,
it's not the biggest carp in the world. I think it's 37 pound, but like it's just the most amazing carp. So I was like, I've got to go. So I texted a few guys at work. Everyone was busy, so I just said to Holly, my girlfriend, I just said, I'm really sorry. I really want to go and say I wanted to go as well. And she gets it, And
fair play to your missus, mate. That's
very
understanding.
So we checked out of the hotel. We stayed to scoff down some breakfast. Luckily, where I was, it wasn't too far from Cambridge, where that was. So half an hour, I think. So I was there.
Flipping out, you're a hero.
He left it in the net, and I was there within about half an hour, and.
Mind you, I mean, seeing that. So I take it Holly didn't come down with you to.
I did try. I said you should come and see Lucy, but she doesn't. She's just not a fan of it. She doesn't get it at all. She's very supportive, but yeah, she doesn't really get the whole fishing side. But no, she's brilliant. So that's probably the biggest sacrifice I've made. But there's all sorts you miss, like, going and, you just have to put yourself second, and your own fishing certainly has to come second behind these guys. But yeah.
Did you realise quite how intense that was going to be when you started?
Yeah, I did, because Dan, the original job ad, he did say, you need to be prepared to be driving down the motorway all hours to film, and it's so diverse. I think he said in the interview, one day you could be up, down deep south with Oscar Thornton, or next day you could be in Essex with Pecky doing a maggot feature. It is so diverse, but I wouldn't have it any other way. It is brilliant. It's a really good fun job. And for me, it's still quite surreal, because obviously growing up as an angler, watching Thinking Tackle as a kid, to now be on those projects, you have to sometimes. It's very strange, even like seeing Dan, idolise him, and even when you see him, it's still a bit, I don't know, but it's amazing how quick it becomes like the norm.
Yeah,
you
get used to it. I mean, it's like when we came up with the music for this show, we were messing around with music, different types of like intro music for ages. And then someone said, well, why don't you just put like the old music on? And as soon as they were playing that, it's like...
That was cool, that we had the original track, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was very cool.
Yeah. And I mean, crikey, as soon as you start hearing that, you're thinking that this is a hell of a responsibility now, isn't it? Once you start...
Yeah, it's definitely hard.
There's a lot of history there.
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
Yeah. And your experience with all of this then, Tom. So you came on the podcast. I guess you didn't realise when you came off of the show with us that it might lead to something else.
No. Never did I expect at that moment that I'd now be sat here in the position, I'm in now. Yeah, all I can describe it, the last 12 months or 11 months since that podcast, it's been a bit of a whirlwind really. Obviously, back then, I was delivering furniture full time, Monday to Friday, fished the weekends, used all my holiday to fish, to make my weekends a bit longer, take Fridays off, whatever. But yeah, not long after we did that podcast, I won't go into the nitty gritty. Tom rang me up first. I had a call off Tom out the blue, asking if I'd like to join the Korda sponsored anglers team. Obviously I was with Thinking Anglers at the time, and to be honest, it did put me in a dilemma, to be honest, because I'd been having tackle bits and that of Thinking Anglers for a long time. Benny, who runs Thinking Anglers, is a good friend. We've been friends for years. But having come up here, met a few people at Korda, I'd met Damien, I'd spoke to Tom on the phone, I'd met yourself. I don't know, everybody I'd met at Korda, I don't know, I was just getting a good vibe. I was feeling the love at Korda, if you know what I mean. I'll be honest, I was swinging this way anyway towards Korda. And then completely out the blue, completely out the blue, one Sunday I was on the way back from the lake and I'd been driving, and when I got home I looked at my phone and I had 2 or 3 text messages off Damo, and I read them, and he was basically asking me if I'd be interested in joining Korda full time as a sponsored angler, and to just basically bring him ASAP. So obviously this was, by the time I'd realised this, it was about 7:30 on a Sunday evening. And I didn't want to ring him back then because I thought, he might be with the missus and
if I know him, mate, he's asleep on the sofa at that time on a Sunday.
Well, to be fair to him, I messaged him. I said, "Can you ring me now?" And he did. He rang me straight back, and basically. Just gave me the dream offer, really. Just basically asked me if I'd be interested, like I say, in joining Korda, doing a bit of filming, etc. And yeah, if I was interested, this would be full time. They'd pay me basically they offered me slightly more than what I was earning before delivering furniture. It seems surreal. It still seems surreal now. That moment when I put that phone down, I can't even describe the feeling. Like Tom says, it was the best day of his life. That literally for me was the best day of my life. I can only describe it as perhaps like winning the lottery.
Or catching the Burfield Common.
Yeah.
So, Tom, sorry. So Tom's title, what is it? Brand ambassador. So
yeah, like you said, he's a sponsored angler, really. But yeah, like a brand ambassador, whatever you want to call it, really. But yeah, just we well, I work with him. Obviously, he does a lot of fishing for us, but we're doing some filming projects with him. Podcast, he tries products for us, new products, helps develop stuff, gives his feedback. Helps me with a lot of social media posts, a few web articles. I know he's got his teeth into all sorts. He's just a good set of hands just to help, really. But obviously, you know how good he is on camera. We just thought, you know, such talent there. You know, I knew what we could do with him if we got him on board. So obviously we were all very keen to get him to Corda, and yeah, it's been a really good. Well, it's been an amazing first year, to be honest. Like some of the fish we've had. You know, it's just, it's brilliant.
Yeah, I know, it's amazing. It's great. So when you started, then, I mean, did they tell you what you need to do as an angler, or?
Well, so basically, what happened? So Damo made me the offer there, and then he said, "Look, if you're interested, me and Dan will come down the lake and see you this weekend." Like, I didn't even have to come here.
Where were you fishing?
I was in Reading.
All right.
I was in Reading on some syndicate. I'm a member of in Reading. And Damo, like I say, was like, "Yeah, we'll come down the lake to you." And I'm thinking, well, like to get to the lake where I was fishing, it's about a mile down like the bumpiest track you've ever. You know, I was actually thinking, I can't send them down that track. But they came, and he said he'd be there at 8 o'clock. And at 7:59 that morning, my phone rang, and it was Damo saying he was at the gates with Dan. And they basically came round to my swim. Damo had a little chair with him. I had a chair ready, which I offered Dan. He was like, "No, I'm all right." He sat on my bucket. So I had Danny and Damo sat outside my billy. I was thinking, this is surreal. This is like, and yeah, they basically just gave me the dream job offer. You know, as sort of Tom's already just explained, you know, sort of brand ambassador.
So did they want to see the way you were fishing and stuff like that? Or it was more...
Yeah.
The best place to have a meeting with you is actually on a lake, is it?
I sort of got the impression... I don't know why they came to the lake. Maybe because I was in my comfort zone.
Yeah.
And perhaps that's what I thought. Perhaps they came there because they knew I'd be more relaxed there than if I had to come here. I don't know. But they came anyway. And yeah, like I say, basically gave me the dream job offer. I mean, obviously a lot of it was filming orientated, and I'd not really done a lot of filming. I'd done that little thing for Photography. I'd done the podcast. You know, if you'd have asked me 12 months ago if I could have sat behind the camera and done this, you know, I'd have said no chance.
What did you think back looking at your podcast then? How you come across?
Well, I never actually watched it.
You didn't watch your own podcast?
Well, I knew what I said.
Have you watched it, Tom?
Yeah, I watched it.
Yeah. I'm terrible for things like that. I don't.
Well, you don't like watching yourself.
No,
I
don't.
Well, mate, it was very good.
I still haven't got used to the sound of listening to my own voice. So other people say it sounds all right. So I'll roll with it.
Well, Tom Rossiter does a good impression of it.
Yeah.
He does actually. Yeah.
Later, maybe.
Yeah, maybe later. So with plans for sort of campaigns and stuff like that, you could just go off and you could do your own thing pretty much.
Yeah,
and just keep everyone in the picture.
Yeah, I'm in an incredibly fortunate position that you know, the type of angling I do, sort of fishing for those like highly sought after carp that generally live in low stock lakes, etc. That's what Corda want from me in a way, or part of what they want. So generally, yeah, I'll just go and do my own fishing. Obviously, there are filming commitments and other things I have to do for Corda. But yeah, I mean, even the stuff it's all fishing based. You know, it's to someone like myself, it's a dream. It really is a dream.
But I guess Corda were looking for someone a little bit different as well. Tom's a little bit different, isn't he? I would say to, you know, your average sponsored angler. Would you say?
I guess so. I think the thing that strikes me with Tom, it's just the keenness. You know, it's just I've never met anyone that keen. You know, it's just absolutely loves it. I mean, the Peter Pan of carp fishing. He's like the boy. You know, who's never grown up. Just absolutely loves it. And you can't. There's a lot of guys coming into it now. I think that, you know, maybe they are in it for the wrong reasons. I don't know, but for me, Tom, it was just pure 100%. He just cares about his fishing. You know, if he didn't have Instagram, if it wasn't for social media, if it wasn't for sponsors, he would still be there the whole time for himself because he loves it. And you know, it's rare to find, I guess. now.
I could tell. Yeah, I could tell talking to you. It's like, when you're talking to someone and they, they're so passionate about what they're talking about, so descriptive. And
well, my favourite part from your podcast, mate, your first one, was every time I'd put a picture on the screen, you just ignore whatever Si was saying, and you were fixated on the picture.
Yeah,
but
we
it was
noticed that,
it was brilliant to see.
yeah. No, it's. And what about? I mean, so bringing in people like Tom to sort of do these jobs, do you see a direct return? Do you think the company do see a direct return, or
Yeah, I mean,
is it just keeping up to date and keeping?
We just
relevant?
wanted to work with Tom. It was just like you could just tell. Again, he's how passionate he is. I wanted to work with him. I thought I can definitely get some really good material out of Tom, and I think we have done. And I'm sure that hopefully people learn. That's the aim. We want people. That's what Dan always says to me. My job is to basically use what these guys do, put it out there on social media, so other people, whatever ability they are, can learn. That's essentially what I need to do for my job.
And I mean, seeing what these guys are doing as well, and like I say, incorporating it into original films and stuff like that as well.
Exactly.
You want a good mix of anglers, don't you, to be able to?
Yeah, you need a mix of anglers, and Tom's approach is, I guess, it is slightly different than some. He fishes very strong tackle. Something that's always stuck by me. One of the first times I met him, he said his rigs are tailored to land the biggest fish from the worst environment on that lake. So that's why he's got 55-pound XT snag leader as his boom, which to a lot of people, I didn't even know he'd done that product. It's like, what is that? Everyone else is using like IQ2 or, soft fluoro. I mean, he's got this 55-pound strong snag leader boom, size 2 hook, 4-ounce lead, 6-foot leg core, braid, it's very strong. So that in itself...
Is that fairly standard for you then?
Yeah, well... Yeah, that XT snag leader that Tom was on about, that's the only uplink I use. I even chuck it out Norton Disney.
Really?
It's... like, as Tom says, I like to fish as heavy. I mean, ultimately, with smaller carp, I suppose it does cost you bites in a way. But I'm not fishing for small carp. Big carp are big. They'll pick up these cruiser rigs. And ultimately...
How small do you think you need to go down to before it is a problem?
What, as in...
Yeah, I mean, when your tackle is just... It's too big and heavy for a certain size of fish.
Yeah, I don't know, really.
Because we've all stepped up, haven't we, recently? Do you step up with tackle?
Yeah, I mean, going back to what you just asked Tom, you say how small. He was fishing that exact tactics at Norton Disney. He was fishing the same tactics at Norton Disney as I've seen him fish on for these huge 50-pound carp. And his catch rate doesn't change. He was still catching a lot of fish from Norton, even in the depth of the winter. Was it March who had that 13 fish hit?
Yeah.
I remember Rob Burgess, who again, he's a very, very talented angler, Rob. And I remember, what was he saying? He was like, I can never cast that out. Rob's got like size 10 long shanks and 15-pound lovely little delicate rigs. And he's just casting them out, and it absolutely smashed them, And so even for this...
It just goes to show. It just
20-pounders, new young mouths.
I'd rather be overgunned than undergunned. You never know what's going to happen, do you? And ultimately, we spend the type of fish I'm fishing for. You can spend months, weeks, whatever, sitting there for that one bite, and I want to land it regardless. I'd rather it not pick it up in the first place if I wasn't going to land it.
But whether you're fishing for the Burfield Common or you're fishing at Norton Disney, it's
still
the importance is still there, isn't it?
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
And you kind of moved up to Norton Disney, didn't you, during the winter?
Yeah, a bit of a funny one. So obviously, I took on this role with Corda, obviously. I wasn't going to say no. And that was in November. I think the end of October was my last day delivering furniture. I did do a bit up at St Ives through November and December. Not much happened there. We won't talk too much about that. It was a bit quiet. And then, obviously, we went into that... Was it the second lockdown? It was the second lockdown, wasn't it?
Yeah, the one in January.
Yeah, we went into the second lockdown in January, which unfortunately meant we couldn't go night fishing, etc., etc. So, with my new role being a fisherman,
brand ambassador.
Yeah, brand ambassador. Yeah, I couldn't actually do what I was employed to do. I mean, we could do day sessions. They've all stated we could do day fishing. But that just doesn't suit my angling. All my angling's 2 hours plus from home, so I'm not going to drive 2 hours to do a day trip. With the restrictions on travel, etc. That'd have just been stupid anyway. So Danny actually came up with this idea. Asked if I wanted to go up Norton Disney. basically they had a load of work on up there, and obviously it was shut because of lockdown. And I could go up there, I could virtually live up there. They got showers on site, toilets on site, great kebab house down the road. I shouldn't say that really because they got a food van there now. That's good too. Yeah, and a real good group of lads that was working up there. I mean, it was hard work. I'm not going to lie, it was hard graft.
What's this picture we got up here? This is very arty, Tom, isn't it?
Yeah.
Black and white picture.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, it was hard graft at times. Basically, the lakes needed to be drained. They were full of snags. Those trees you can see me carrying there, those little spindly like sapling trees, they're off the lake bed. They are. Basically, the lakes were a lot lower when they first dug, and all these sapling trees grew to about 6 foot, and then the lakes filled up another 10 foot or so. So they're full of these. Basically, we had to drain the lakes down, pull all these trees out. A few other jobs. But I'll be honest, I really enjoed it. You know,
those lakes are really deep as well, aren't
they are deep.
Was it Turner's Lake as well?
Yeah, we did Turner's, Holden's and Hodgett's.
Yeah.
And as I say, really interesting.
Is that the sort of work that you're used to?
Not really.
But yeah.
But like at the same time, you know, I don't mind a bit of hard work. And if somebody had have offered me a job 12 months ago, said, look, Tom, we want you to come up Norton Disney and, you know, be a sort of maintenance man and whatever, do a bit of work. I'd have jumped at the opportunity, you know. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I'll be honest. Had a great time, and obviously the bonus was I could also fish the odd day between work. You know. To begin with, though, nothing happened. I'll be honest. It was freezing cold. We had some terrible weather. The lakes were freezing on and off. But towards the end, I actually did really well. The last sort of few weeks I was up there. In March, I ended up catching a load from Pettit's, which is like...
Why did you choose Pettit's Lake?
Because Pettit's it's like the lowest stocked lake.
One of the smaller lakes as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it's quite small, but deep, full of features, which makes it interesting. But it's without doubt got the best stock of carp. You only need to catch 1 or 2 from Pettit's and you're going to catch a nice one. You know, most of them are mid-20s, upper 20s, a lot of 30-pounders. And I actually had a really good few weeks fishing. I actually caught 8 30-pounders out of the lake, including the biggest mirror and the biggest common. And that was all in March. So, like...
As you do.
Yeah, was that weather? Was that sort of weather sort of dependent then? Was it? Did it hinge on the weather
really
conditions?
Opened my eyes to... Because I had a lot of time. I was at the lakes all the time. I was up there Monday to Friday. We were constantly watching, and it was just dead. It really opened my eyes to how much lakes can shut down in the winter, even though they've got a lot of carp. I think the problem was no one had been fishing the lakes for quite a long time, so the carp went really dormant. But it was so noticeable. Like nothing happened for weeks, and then the first few sunny days we had at the end of February, it was like a switch. Someone flicked a switch, and I think I went from catching nothing for like however many days I'd fished in the run up to the end of February, and then in the space of like the last 4 weeks I had 30 bites, landed 29 of them, including 8 30s.
Blimey.
It was a different lake.
So did you see the fish became active on there?
Yeah, they just woke up and they
were you fishing? You were catching fish out of a localized area of the lake?
I mean, it sounds easy. I caught them, but the truth of it is the site was closed. I worked out where the fish were, which was out in front of Swim 2.
Could you go out in the boat and look out there?
You could if you wanted, but it's deep. It's very deep.
Couldn't see anything.
No. It was just where I'd clocked them showing, and they basically woke up there from their winter slumber as such. And like I say, the site was closed. I managed to get myself into that swim, and I just kept the bait going in. Nobody else was fishing there. I mean, other people fishing the lake.
Yeah,
other people
don't make out that there was no one else there, because people think, oh, he had the complex to himself. It was full.
Yeah.
The complex was full of contractors.
And,
still,
yeah.
It wasn't. He didn't just. Definitely underselling yourself there.
Yeah, all right, sorry. the fish were there. I did have a lot of time, and I had the swim to myself. So it wasn't a normal day ticket situation. The lakes were busy, like Tom says. You know, there was a lot of staff and contractors up there working, staying up there. But but yeah.
And then how are you approaching? So how are you fishing a water like that when you've got a lake that's slowly started coming back to life? Are you
just minimal bait to begin with? I was just
localized spots as well, or
yeah, I was just fishing one spot in the middle, lung to the middle, 26 wraps onto. It's quite a deep lake, and one half of it's very deep, half of it's very shallow, and I was fishing on the shallower side out to the middle, but as it sloped off towards that deeper water, a typical place where the fish are going to sort of spend the winters. They got deep water, shallow water.
You're fishing pretty much on a shelf there.
Yeah. On the edge of a shelf, the fish like those kind of areas if they've got deep and shallow, because they've not got far to move in the winter to make the most of the weather. If the sun comes out, they can move up onto the shallow. If it goes cold, they drop down into the deep. But that's where they woke up. As I say, I worked out where they were, and just baited lightly with a very sort of high attract mix. A lot of rock salt in it. I do like a bit of salt. It gives off a lot of attraction. Very little, no feed value at all.
Would you use salt in your bait all year round?
Yeah, I do. Not only is it massively attractive, it also preserves your bait.
Yeah.
Especially now I've got a lot more time.
Well, I mean, it enhances the bait as well, doesn't it?
It enhances the bait.
So it seasons the bait.
Yeah, I mean, a bucket of particle, for instance. If I cook a bucket of seed and don't put salt in it, in this time of year, you leave it in the van, within a few days, you can tell it's starting to go a bit sour. Put salt in it, leave it in there for weeks, it's lovely, gets better,
Yeah.
And your boilies, you take freezer baits out the freezer, boilies, especially fish meals I use, and if you've just got a bag of boilies, they can start to turn again in the sun after a few days, they go a bit white, they start. But if you glug them in a liquid and then coat them in a bit of rock salt, again, just preserves them for a few more days.
You don't need to worry about preservatives in preserved boilies, do you? When you can use liquids and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So when they were turning on, Tom, were there specific just slight changes in temperature or what?
Yeah, it was just that sunshine. Like I say, it was those first couple of sunny days at the end of February. I'd seen them showing beforehand. So a week before I started catching them, bear in mind I'd been there every day for like 2 months, and I'd seen nothing on Pettits. I was working, I wasn't just sitting next to Pettits waiting for the cart to start jumping, I promise. But I'd seen nothing. They were just dormant. In hindsight, I did see one maybe about a month before I actually saw where they were, and I'd say in hindsight, I think it was a carp, because where I saw this maybe was exactly where they ended up waking up, out in front of Peg 2. But yeah.
What, they like day bites as well, were they?
All day bites, day bites.
Same sort of times, or?
Afternoons was the prime time, really early. The first few was afternoons. Once you had the warmth for the day, obviously, it was all that afternoon, sort of 5-6 o'clock to begin with. My first few bites, and then as the sort of March wore on, it started to swing more towards that typical sort of morning bite time. But the days were definitely the time. The days were the time. Caught them all in the days, in fact. Caught them all in the days.
We went there. We went there a few weeks after. Were you there, Tom?
No.
We had a birthday thing up there, and it was dead again then. I mean, there was nothing yet. But the temperature dropped off. I mean, it just needed to. It just got cold, and that was it.
Incredible place, great. I mean, I'm not really a day ticket angler. I've never really been to a day ticket ever. Until I went Norton Disney, but I really like it up there. It's a really nice place, but it's not easy, that Pettits. It can be a bit moody, but that's what makes it what it is, isn't it? If it was easy,
that's a hell of a result, that is, isn't it? Blimey!
It was,
and I mean, we needed a bit of a stock check on that bait on that lake anyway, didn't we? So it would, I mean, just to see how the fish were doing. Were they up in weight as well, weren't they?
They were. In fact, I think. there was only 6 known 30s in the lake, I think, prior to me catching them, and I actually caught 8. So I caught so they're definitely grown.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
it's got some
they have grown. Years to come, that lake will be an incredible lake for a day ticket. The fish they've put in there, you know, there's a lot of 30-pounders now. They're all good 20s, really nice looking carp. Give it 5 years, and they're all going to be 30s and 40s, maybe a couple touching 50.
And they wised up, didn't they? Those the older ones that were in there as well. I mean, they weren't getting caught, were they?
No, they didn't.
Yeah.
They didn't. They're not easy to catch.
No, but I think the complex in general as well. It's you know, you've got a nice variety of different waters. I mean, Billy's is a decent sized lake, but it's a nice amount of water there, isn't it? And you've got some nice fishing scenarios on there. You've got gravel bars and features out there as well, and I'd imagine that they move on the wind a lot. They do,
especially at the minute, because I think I mentioned it earlier. They're all young fish. They're young fish, and the lakes are quite deep. I don't know if that's got any makes any difference or what, but they move with the winds. They're so predictable. They move with the winds. Pardon me. They move with the winds, and yeah, they stay there until the wind changes. Yeah, pretty much.
It's like a pack. You just see. You can just see them move.
Yeah, I noticed that on Billy's Lake. You know, when that wind direction changed, you know, they were everything. It's like literally, you know, everything was on the end of that wind. So yeah. So Tom, yeah, obviously, so that sort of brings us up to date with for the winter period with Tom's fishing. You wanted to come up with a new project this year, didn't you?
Yeah, so called a mindset. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was Dan's idea initially. He sort of came to me, I think, back end of last year, early winter, and we were just having a review of how the year went with the sponsored anglers, and you know what my output of work was, and I think it was apparent that I was getting a lot of content, but it wasn't getting seen, or it wasn't coming through as we wanted it to in Corda Official, with so many other projects that we have to share on Corda. You know, Thinking Tackle, Monster Carp, Masterclass, and all the new products we launch. An insight into these anglers, it was so difficult to get that across, and you know, my interests are more into the big carp scene as opposed to, you know, the hard product sales and that kind of thing. So I just felt there was a gap at Corda to do something with this. So Dan came up with the idea for this new platform. So
where did the name come from?
I think I thought of it. We had a brainstorm. We had loads of different ideas. You know, Corda Elite was a front runner. But we felt it was a little bit elitist perhaps. But I felt Corda Mindset was quite, you know, an original standout name.
It separates you from the brand a little bit as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, obviously, yeah, it does. You know, I just wanted a platform for these anglers, just to, you know, a standalone platform where they get the attention they deserve, because we've got so many superstars in house at Corda. You know, your likes of Daryl, Davey, Spooner, Dan. You know, they get the attention, and you know, rightly so. But I just felt that there was these anglers out there that we're giving kit to. They catch these epic fish, you know, in their own time. You know, we need to showcase this. You know, we need to do it. So yeah, we come up with the idea of the Corda Mindset.
So what's the criteria then for getting a picture on Mindset?
Well, I just want it to be. I'm fussy of what I post on there. You know, that it's the highest level of photography that you can find. I'd say in the industry. You know, so the aim for me is I want to inspire people to fish. You know, it's and learn, of course. But yeah, so there's a real mixture of really nice scenics and landscape shots. 'Cause when we're on these film shoots, we get such incredible photos that perhaps, you know, they don't get to see the light of day, and it's just not right. So we've got, you know, you can see lovely scenics, a mixture of tactical, technical, sort of rig stuff, but it's not overly that.
What's going on in that one?
That's Elliot Gray with a ghillie suit
that's
on.
Elliot, is it?
But yeah, that's Elliot's margin fishing tips. So it's just an insight, you know. And there's so much information on there. It's so it's, you know, it's a small platform at the moment, but we're definitely building it. So I just wanted an area where these guys can just, you know, showcase their talent, or I can showcase what they do, and hopefully people find it inspiring. That's my aim, you know, that they can just look at this page and learn something.
It kind of reminds me of, like, you know, Subsurface a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I followed Subsurface for years, and I remember, you know, when I was a lot younger, I absolutely loved that. And I still love it. I think it's I think it's the best out there of what it is. I think it's incredible. The photography is amazing on there, and that inspires me to get out, and that sort of inspired me to pick up a camera for the first time.
That's a great picture, that one. Really, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Where was that taken?
I don't know. That was actually sent in. Jack Stutley sent that one in.
Jack, great picture, mate.
You like that, Tom?
You've picked the
It's all
only.
right.
You've actually picked the
Mate.
only picture
That you didn't take.
that someone recorded it. That is the only picture I've ever posted on there that me or Kev haven't taken.
Sorry,
pretty much.
mate, but there you go. Shows how off the cuff this is.
So how
Cheers, Tobes.
Sorry.
how often are you posting pictures on there?
Try and every day if I can.
Yeah.
Yeah, certainly at least once a day. So anyway, that was the plan, to get this mindset page launched at the beginning of the year, which we've done, and it's been really successful. And it's been really, really well received. I mean, you know what social media can be like. It can be pretty nasty, can't it? And people won't know this, but when you get, to call them trolls, when you get these people writing these nasty comments, I see that, and that's about the post that I've written. And it can be hurtful, because you think, I'm not trying to lie to you or to make you buy this. I'm literally trying to educate or help youngsters or people,
I inspire people.
And you just get these comments, and you think, oh, he didn't invent that rig. Terry Owen invented that rig. And you think,
Yeah.
I never said that he invented it. I'm just saying that is what he uses as his rig. You don't have to like it or buy it or whatever. It's just frustrating. But this Corder mindset has been really well received. There's been no negative comments, which is amazing for social media.
Yeah, it's good going.
It's pretty unheard of. So
It took off quite quickly as well, didn't it?
Yeah,
How
it
many,
took off quickly. The guy,
subscribers now.
I'm not sure. I think it's about 19,000 followers, which is again,
Followers.
it's pretty. For what it is. I mean, that was kind of my aim. I knew it would always be slower, because that sort of niche is obviously a lot smaller in the grand scheme. So we've got Corder Official.
And how many people contribute to that?
There's about 13 anglers. So they are our longest serving, or the guys who sort of have incredible, or catch incredible carp regularly. We've got, like I said to you earlier, we've got 60 guys on the team. They are all, of course, they're brilliant anglers. They're sponsored by Corder.
But for the 13 that can take pictures and
They're just aligned to this sort of this mindset. Without being cliche, they all absolutely live and breathe it. Most of them, or all of them, have got jobs.
Have they up their game a little bit as well, because they know where
I think
their
they built into this. I think at first they were a little bit, what they're like. They didn't want something out there that was a bit cringy or embarrassing, but they've seen that it's, that they buy into it. They like it. Of course, why wouldn't you want you to have the best photos of your fish? Why wouldn't you want to have a brilliant film made of you? What's not to like about that? So, and like I said, I have really good relationships with these guys, and they know how important it is to me, and that so I think they respect that, and they're always really keen. I've definitely leaned on these anglers more this year to get content from. So the plan was originally just to make a side platform, a standalone Instagram page, but I want to take it to a new level. I just thought we need to get some films made out of these guys, because with guys like Tom and all the other guys, I knew there was going to be some special fish caught, and we don't usually go and film them. We just get the photo and put it on a catch report, and that's kind of as far as it goes. But I just thought, we have Thinking Tackle and the other projects, but I thought, let's do a mindset project. And it was very much play it by ear, because I needed the guys to get the fish and then give me the call. So it pretty much started straight away. And Tom, Luke Stevenson, Luke Valerie just had the most phenomenal springs, and I was getting regular calls from these guys, and fortunately I was able to attend every single time they got one of these big fish and get it on film.
But these anglers are quite, look at Luke there. Luke knows, he's got his own pose, hasn't he? Yeah, for sure. But these guys are quite. They don't like to give too much away either, do they? Tom's a little bit more.
We're always honest. That's what Dan's always said. Always be honest. Like I've never once done a catch report that's a lie. If I've said that's what it's caught on, that is generally what it's caught on.
Yeah.
Sometimes we might hold a fish back for a couple of months. If they're having a really
Luke
good
Valerie fish that we're looking at there.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, that's probably their best carp, and amazing. This one was incredible, because I was with him myself.
That's Black Swan, is it?
White Swan.
Sorry, White Swan.
Myself and Lewis were there to film him, and he had a fish called the Stanford Common. I think it was 43 pounds.
Yeah.
So we were there when he had that, and I'm not joking. He just returned that fish, and his other rod melted off, and we've got it all, and the fight on film, and that fish. That you could not have planned that any better. So I think that was 47 just under 48 pounds. And I mean, you can just see in the photos.
There are some mental fish in that lake, aren't there?
So to get that on film, I think we've got so many fish of Luke in his film. I think we've got 3 40, and they're so rare in Dinton. They're so special. I think we've got 3 40-pounders, 2 or 3 40-pounders, and we've got several 37s all on film. It's just the most incredible campaign you could ever imagine.
How's it going to look when it comes out? I mean, are you going to try and keep it as raw as possible? Is there going to be narration?
I just think it's going to be incredible. Like I just could not have dreamed it to have gone this well. So we've got 3 films. I think the Luke Vary one, because of that particular fish at the end on film. So yeah, that's going to be Luke just reflecting on his time at Dinton. He's probably be a half an hour, 40-minute film.
He's been fishing there a while now, hasn't he?
He's been on there for 5 seasons, I believe. Sort of on off a little bit, but yeah, he fishes hard when he's fishing. And this spring he fished really, really hard. He always fishes hard, but he had a very, very good spring. He started picking fish up last autumn, like regularly, when it was really quiet on there. And it's such a challenging lake. And then this spring, it just, all aligned for him. And, he had some really, really special fish. So that'll be, reflecting on his spring campaign,
So an interview with him and then video footage of the...
He's sat in the bivvy just reflecting on it, and then we've got the footage over the top, sort of as cutaways thrown in. I mean, it's quite emotional, really. You can see when Luke gets that fish in the net and we're filming, it almost brings him to tears, because they mean so much to these anglers. They give up, make huge sacrifices to catch those carp. They don't come along very often, so you could see what it meant to him. So his raw emotion is very evident in that film. So that's probably they're all good films, but that's probably my favourite. So we've got that as one film. Luke Stevenson's on the Woolpack, and again, Luke being Luke, he's had a phenomenal spring. Consistently been catching fish. We've had some brilliant phone calls. I mean, that one there is just the most.
He's caught some amazing carp, hasn't he? Yeah.
Oh, it's just incredible. I mean, that common carp. I mean, that's actually a screenshot from a video. That's not even a photo. So you can imagine how sharp the film's going to be.
It's not a bad screenshot.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was just the most incredible fish. So he's had some. I think he's had 3 40s, and that incredible Lucy the Leather 37 that you saw earlier. So that in itself is going to be a brilliant film, and that's going to be me interviewing him, asking him questions. I want to pick his brains. Big cut mindset, Luke's mindset, how he does what he does, why is he so successful? So I'm going to just delve into his mind, really, if I can, and just ask him questions, just see how he does it, how he goes about it. Obviously I know what he does, but it's just little things that Luke does that makes him he doesn't do anything complicated.
He's a bit of an enigma, isn't he? I mean, he comes on here, we've done the Rig podcast with him, and I've done a podcast with him as well, and it's a bit like all these good anglers, it seems quite straightforward, doesn't it?
Yeah, but he makes it look very easy. But then you put yourself in his shoes and you think, would I have done that? No, probably not. I thought that was the first time I went out of Darrell. I thought...
Anything in particular that you noticed there?
What, with Luke? Or,
yeah.
Just very quiet and stealthy. But he's so in tune with the lake. It's incredible. He just always knows where the biggin is. He's like, the biggin's down. I saw the biggin down there this morning. And then he'll go and look, he'll go up a tree and he'll be like, there's the big one. You just think it makes it look so easy, but in reality, that is not. I mean, all these guys do that, but yeah, Luke, that's one thing that's definitely evident with Luke. He's very switched on to the lake. He usually knows where that big one is, and he knows what to do at the right time. For example, this spring he's been fishing chod-rigs, scattering to boilies, but then I've seen him before fishing with just tiger nuts or just maggot, and you think he just knows what to do, what situation, and
That's what we'd like to do doing this. Is maybe you could talk about that as Tom as well, Tom. It's that transition between baits as well, isn't it? And knowing when when to sort of change. When you've overdone something and it's not working, and when to change onto something else.
Yeah, like fine tuning it. For the time of the year or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough one because different lakes respond to different baits, don't they? At different times. I'd say, a lot of my fishing, as we touched on before, has been this time of year is like heavy baiting with seed, etc. That's my go-to summer tactic. I just think, in the spring, they see a lot of boilies. People are generally catching them on boilies, pop-ups, etc. I don't know. In the summer, there's just something about seed, whether it's because they've done a few captures in the spring and they're a bit more on edge, whether they just like to eat particles in the summer.
Would you ever go full out? I mean, from sort of September onwards, would you go full out boilies, or are you always using?
But it depends, yeah. Yes and no.
This is the thing. This is what makes these.
It depends on the lake and it depends on the situation. There's nothing set in stone. You can't say I'm going to go there and I'm going to do this because, I went to Longreach. I'll use Longreach as an example because we was talking about it earlier and it's just happened. I went to Longreach thinking I'm going to catch these on my usual summer tactic. Fishing loads of seed out in the middle, bait heavy, they'll come. I might have ended up catching them like that, but as it happens, I ended up catching them on pop-ups and boilies, catapult range on the end of a wind. Now, I haven't caught carp like that in the summer for years from any of the other lakes I've fished. You could do that 100. Like again, I mentioned it earlier. A lot of big pitch. You could do that 100 times somewhere like Burfield. Just chucking pop-ups out on the end of a wind and hoping they're going to turn up, and they just wouldn't. It's a tough one to call. I mean, you could say that, winter time, people go to maggots and casters, etc. That's something I've not really used a lot because, again, I think the lakes are fished, the bigger low-stock pits. The key, even in the colder months, is just being on them, not so much what you're putting in front of them. Those smaller lakes, the more intimate lakes where the fish are seen angling pressure all the time, I think they're the type of lakes where, natural baits, the maggots, the worms, the castor, that's where they start to make a difference. Carp that are seeing bait all the time, if they all of a sudden you give them something like maggots, they could just, I could understand why they would feed hard on those potentially in the autumn. But no, what I'm getting at is it all depends on the lake, doesn't it? It all depends on the lake. It's a tough one to call that.
Time spent on the lake, isn't it, as well?
Yeah, trial and error.
Yeah.
You might just one day you'll try something and you'll catch something and then it just carries on from there.
Yeah. And sorry, so these films, these mindset films as well. I know when you go on like YouTube and stuff, and you look at the old, I don't know if you've looked at the old video footage from like Yateley and Jason Hayward with the Black Mirror, all that stuff. People like watching those type of style films as well, don't they? They look quite nostalgic.
I just think there was a gap at Korda because we make amazing films, but I just felt like we could get some. They're not raw because they're expertly filmed by some of the other videographers. Like I brought Lewis and Kev along with me because I can get my stuff is it's nowhere near their level, but they're not raw. They're very well filmed. So I just felt there was a gap for these incredible carp to be seen through Korda. So it wasn't easy to make the films. There's a lot of sacrifice, hard work and effort, a lot of miles driving to and from certain places to be there for these fish. But we're so happy with the end result. So like I said, we've got 2 films in the bag. Luke Valerie, Luke Stevenson, and the other film was with Tom. So, I mean, we want to do a spring campaign with Tom at Wasing. And again, just incredible. Like, these other 2 guys, Luke and Luke, were catching carp. So I was like, Tom started catching as well. So I've got these 3 guys just...
It's running around all over.
Yeah, it's like, this is incredible. Like, it literally killed me. But at the same time, I knew the end result was going to be incredible. So I mean, we'll touch on what happened to Tom at Wasing, but the end result, we've got this new Korda platform, Korda Mindset, and my aim will be now each year we have a space for these mindset films. We've got masterclass in.
So you're prepared to do this every year, are you?
Well, I am, but whether the other guys want me to do it, or it's just it's like I've got big plans, but you've got to be realistic as well. We'll see how well received they are. I'm hoping they are. The effort we've put into making them. Of course, I want them to do just as well as any other project. So, if they're well received, of course, we'll continue doing them. But that I love making them, and I'd love to do it every year. I'd love them to be just as important to Korda, as a masterclass or a thinking tackle. That'd be brilliant.
It's quite unique though, as well, isn't it?
Yeah, they are unique films. They are niche, I guess. But who doesn't love a big carp? A big carp story. So.
And when do you think the films are going to come out?
I mean, hopefully, all being well, it's September. But, so it's not long, a month's time.
Only around the corner.
Yeah, I'd love it if they all came out. So probably Luke Valerie's will drop first. We're almost finished on that edit. We've got a few more days next week to finish that one. We're meeting a guy next week. He's a freelancer. He's going to hopefully help out with Tom's edit. And I've got a couple more days to film with Luke Stevenson. But you know, it's going to be a challenging month, but I'm confident we can get it done. If it's not September, it'll be this autumn.
I mean, are you waiting for anything in particular with Luke?
The interview for Luke Stevenson. So we've got a backlog of fish now. I just need to sit down with him and get the main bulk, the interview piece done.
God, that sounds good. That, yeah. Let's get on to Wazing then. This guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that went quite well as well, didn't it?
It did. It did. It went as well as it could have done, I suppose. Because obviously, I'm not going to lie, you know, you do feel a certain amount of pressure. I mean, I mentioned it before, I've not done a lot of filming. I'd only done a bit with Elliot, etc., the odd podcast prior to this, to doing this film with Tom this spring. So, like, you know, you do think, God, you know, they're putting a lot of money into this, you know, and you got to catch something, haven't you? But yeah, thankfully, it went really well.
When did you start fishing Wazing?
So I started fishing Wazing, when was it? April, second week in April. Again, that wasn't planned. I ended up getting my ticket earlier than I sort of imagined I would. Basically, I got a phone call in the early part of, well, it was still winter, it's probably February time, while I was up Norton Disney, and basically somebody who was on the syndicate, you can pay by direct debit at Wazing, and there was a couple of people that hadn't continued to pay their ticket because of COVID. They obviously didn't have the money or whatever, so there was a few tickets going, and they basically rang me up to say that my name had come up, and if I wanted one of these tickets, I could basically pay for the rest of the year. And I was a member, so as I say, it came a bit out of the blue. Planned on spending the spring on Shallow Pit. That was our original plan for the spring. Yeah, we came out of lockdown. I think it was the start of April, wasn't it? The 1st of April. Went to Shallow Pit as planned, even though I had this Wazing ticket, because I thought I'll carry on as planned. Shallow Pit, as the name suggests, is a very shallow lake, renowned for fishing well in the spring. I went there, and it was warm. That first trip back to Shallow Pit, it was warm. The fish got in the out of bounds, and I sort of waded over onto this island where you can, you know, it's a known spot to sort of view the fish when they're in the out of bounds. And basically, they turned up, and Colin, unfortunately, was obviously ottered. He's been ottered in the past, but it was obvious that they'd had him again this winter. He was swimming. He was still alive at that point, but he was showing real bad signs of otter damage. His tail looked like it had been through a blender. His lips were all freshly chewed. His little pecs were chewed. It was terrible. I also saw 3 or 4 other fish with otter damage. I saw otters while I was there, and I just sort of thought...
Is it fenced?
No, unfortunately not. Shallow Pit is unfortunately not fenced. But basically, I could tell what was happening. I could tell what was about to happen. And I sat there for those couple of nights thinking, I've got a Wazing ticket, which is fenced, and it's got three 50-pounders in it, or potentially. And I can remember I rang you up, didn't I, Tom? And I was like, mate, I can't sit here. Like it was an awkward one at that time, because I'm always one of them, when I've got ideas in my head, I like to go through, you know, I generally, and like, all of a sudden, at the last minute, I'm completely changing my plans for the spring. We were planning on doing this spring campaign film on Shallow Pit. It was ideal for Tom. It was only an hour down the road. It was all planned. And at the last minute, I was like, Tom, I can't. This just ain't going to... Anyway, Tom said it's fine. It doesn't matter. We hadn't done anything yet. So I went to Wazing. And I'm so glad I did, because... unfortunately, Colin got ottered 2 weeks later. I mean, it was obvious. Once the otters got him again, he wasn't getting away. They'd done him. His tail was that badly damaged. He wasn't going to swim anywhere quickly.
Oh, crikey. They'd had a few goes at him.
Yeah. Ultimately, they killed him, from what I know, on their third attack. I mean, he must have been an hard bugger, because they had him once, he survived. They had him again, he just about survived. And then about 3 weeks later... God, what a shame. They finally... finally killed him, poor old bugger. So yeah, I ended up going to Wazing, and to be honest, it was a really good decision. I mean, Wazing's a fantastic place, incredible. I mean, it's a dream. It's a lot of money. The ticket's a lot of money, but you get what you pay for. Oxley Lake, which was the lake I intended on fishing, They say it's 10 acres, but it doesn't feel 10 acres. I'd say it's 8 maybe. And there's 3 50-pounders in there at the right time of year. There's only a relatively low stock of carp. I mean, we sort of estimated toward the end there was probably only 25, 30 from what we'd seen. But a lot of big fish, few 40-pounders, those 3 big ones. And yeah, as I say, it turned out to be a really good decision. The spring panned out really well. To be honest, it was a bit nerve-wracking at first because obviously I've never done any film. I've done tiny bits with Elliot and whatever, but now all of a sudden I've got Corda and backing Tom, putting a lot of money into it to send Tom and Lewis etc. down to the lake to me, and I've got to catch fish. There is a certain amount of pressure there. But yeah, it went really well. Started the spring off with my first bite. In fact, was one of the probably arguably the best looking fish in the lake. I mean, it's the second biggest mirror. It's a fish known as the pretty one. It's the 4th biggest in the lake. That was my first bite at 43.5 pounds. That was
looking
it. Mega carp.
Yeah.
Mega looking carp. It's a funny. Going on to Tom getting called out, I had that bite at 2:30 in the morning, and I thought I didn't want to ring Tom, so I thought I'll just drop him a text him to say I had one. Within 2 minutes, he's ringing me back. It was like he was sat there at 2:30, waiting for someone to text him. And no, fair play to him. He must have. What's that weighing for you? 2.5 hours?
Yeah, 2.5.
Yeah, and he was there in my swim before.
You need to get married
with a
quick, don't
with
you,
a bacon
Tom?
sandwich.
Yeah, he was there in my swim with a bacon sandwich before daylight had even broke.
You need to get married quick before she changes her mind.
Yeah, I know.
But yeah, that one actually became my pet. I ended up catching that one 3 times in the next 6 weeks.
Blimey. Did you come out all 3 times then?
No. I was with him the third time.
The
We just
second
got a great
time
shot
I
of
just
him
let
in
it
the
go, yeah. The second time I let it go. The third time, Tom and Lewis were down, so we just literally did I lifted it out the net and did a quick picture and let it go. Because it's such a mega carp,
Yeah.
Incredible fish.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, and then, caught I mean, I won't tell you capture by capture, but it went really well. I caught a couple of other nice ones. The first one I actually caught on camera. We managed to get a bite on camera.
I think you got this, Toby. I think I
Oh,
gave
God.
him the
I've been
tip.
waiting for this clip.
We've been laughing.
This is one of those golden
Well, you might as
moments.
well see it. So yeah, basically the first bite we managed to get on camera.
Here we go.
Yeah, a bit of gold here.
This is brilliant.
Might as well have a laugh.
Look at that.
There we go.
So Tom has just gone straight in. Bum first. Oh, that's brilliant. Didn't even flinch, did you?
Was it cold, mate?
He didn't even know,
I
did he?
didn't
Adrenaline
even know
was
at this
pumping.
point, yeah.
Hey, that was good having the camera rolling though, Tom, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Lewis can take credit for that. We were both there, but yeah, no. Camera was just always rolled. As soon as it's like we just get a camera on the rods because you just never know. But that was one of
looks
those
good.
moments where it was just
Looking
amazing.
back at it, then it brings back good memories.
Oh,
doesn't
it was such a buzz, wasn't it? When you got that one in the net. It
I
was-
take it that's
it
the only one
was.
you got, the only bite you've got.
I think that's the only. Oh no, you got.
Oh, we did get another one. Yeah, we got
£28.
we got another one as well. But that was the most epic bite. We were sitting in the back of my van having a cup of tea, weren't we? Talking about pop-ups or something, and then all of a sudden I just saw the rod go in the braid, and it was like, oh, this. And then when he dived in, me and Lewis just looked at each other. It was just like, this is going to be amazing.
What are you on a timer on that?
Yeah, it's called cash. So you press a
Yeah.
button and it takes the 20 seconds.
The previous 20
Previous 20
seconds.
seconds.
Yeah. So you just got to hit that button within the 20 seconds, and then you've got that.
Yeah.
You've got the film. That's great, isn't it? You
But
can't beat that.
Oh,
So that's
can
what I
you?
mean. All these takes you see on Thinking Tackle, and everyone's like, oh, that's just fake. None of them are fake. They're all genuine.
Yeah. But seeing him go into the water like that and stuff as well, it's like...
Yeah, and you can see it. It's like midwinter. It's still like late winter, isn't it? Really, like
Yeah.
was it early April? So yeah, obviously it can be
But
cold.
the thing is, I'd seen quite a few of the big uns the day before by that reed bed, and obviously I was fishing locked up with a braid. And yeah, it was just one of those. I didn't really think at the time. The plan was to just sort of hop in the water behind the rod, but there was a few.
So the fish
roots
were
and-
hanging basically reed beds. That was that was.
As the spring wore on, I mean, you'll see in the film, it basically transpired that they were living in one swim, the bowl. It was a bay at one end of the lake. They pretty much lived there the whole spring. 90% of the stock spent 90% of its time in the bowl, and it's commanded by one swim. So it became a bit of one in, one out in that one swim. But thankfully, I did manage to find a few using this little reed bed in what is the next swim down the bank, basically. So yeah, got a good bit of fish in there.
Sorry, but that bowl then, what was it? What was it that they were liking about it?
The thing with the bowl, the lake's long and thin. Very deep. I should have touched on that actually. The reason that was why I wasn't planning on going there in the spring. That little lake is incredibly deep. 35 foot plus in the middle. I mean, that swim there that I caught that fish from, where you've just seen that video of me falling in, it's probably 45 yards to the far bank. And in that 45 yards, it gets down to 30 odd foot and then back up again. So you can tell what the marginal shelves are like. They're like vertical. Not the best place to fish in the spring. As I said, I didn't plan to go there, but yeah, ended up there. But the bowl's got quite a bit of shallow water. It's very sheltered. It's at the southerly end of the lake, so it gets all the sun. It's completely surrounded by snags and reeds. There's a small channel that leads in there from the main lake. It's at the south-southwesterly end of the lake. So even when there's a big south-southwesterly wind, it sort of pumps up the lake. But because it's filtered through this little narrow channel, the bowl is always flat calm, basks in the sun.
Perfect.
It's the perfect carp habitat. The lake was busy this spring because the fish are big and people knew it. There's only one swim in the bowl. So the carp, even though it's constantly pressured, the carp feel relatively safe because they're all in the snags on the far side of the bay, 120 yards away. And there's one angler in there with 3 rods towed over there. I mean, it is pressure, but compared to the rest of the lake, it was the least pressured area and just the most favourable area if you were a carp. Lots of sun, lots of snags, lots of shelter. The ideal place to be in the spring.
Yeah. And is that something that you've taken from that particular lake? Or
Yeah.
you've seen before?
Well, I mean, everyone will know, but obviously Darryl was fishing there as well, and Darryl clocked that very early on that they were in that bowl, and he came up with a game plan and. Incredible spell of angling. I mean, in 5 bites, he lost one. He caught a 33-pound common, and he caught all 3 of the big uns. Now, you just couldn't write that. You couldn't write that. All from the bowl. He knew they were there, and every other night he spent on that lake that he wasn't in the bowl, he didn't even put his rods out. That's how he knew that it was all about the bowl. Yeah, it was all about the bowl. As I say, thankfully, I did manage to find a few in these reeds and sort of caught a few from there. In fact, I ended up catching the big one from there less than a week after Darryl caught it. There's a cool little story to that. Darryl caught the Oxleas Common, which is the biggest fish in the lake, and it was 55 pounds, just over 55 pound. Incredible weight for that fish. But I later came to find out that it doesn't often get caught in the spring, that fish. So his top weight previously was 51 pound, but that probably explains why. Darryl caught it when it was big in the spring when people don't usually catch it. And I went round and helped Darryl photograph it, and that incredible fish, massive carp. Anyway, the day after Darryl caught it, that reed bed where I'd clocked a few in and caught a few from, where that bite where you saw me falling in is from, I had a little look in there, and there was the Oxleas Common, sulking on its own, sat in the back of the reeds. And it was the day I was going home. I didn't think anything of it. I just saw it in there. I thought, oh, look, there's the Oxleas. It's sulking, literally round the corner from where Darryl had caught it. Spent half an hour watching it, tried to get a bit of footage of it. It was a bit awkward because it was like under the snags and under the branches, but it was just cool to see a fish of that size in like 1.5 foot of gin clear water underneath me. It's impressive thing to look at. Anyway, I went away, and I went away from the lake and came back a few days later. In the meantime, I'd actually told my mate about this. I said, "Oh, I've seen the Oxley, seen them reeds," and my mate was like, "Oh, you'll catch it off the front of them reeds." Like, and I didn't really think anything of it. I just sort of dismissed it. We carried on the conversation. Anyway, went back down there a few days later, and I'm gunning for the bowl myself. You know, I've sort of clocked that they're in the bowl as well. In fact, my first bite was from the bowl, the pretty one. I knew they were in there, but it took me a little bit longer to realise that they were living in there as such. But anyway, I'd seen the Oxleys, like I say, in the reeds. I turned back up to get in the bowl. There was a lad in the I turned up on the Sunday. There was a lad in the bowl who I went and had a chat with, and he was like, "Oh, I'm off in the morning. I'm only doing a work night. I'll be off at 7 in the morning." I was like, "Cool, you mind if I get in after you?" "No problem, mate. Leave your bucket, whatever." So I've gone round, and this swim that fishes the reeds is the next swim down the bank, or the closest swim to the boss. So I thought, well, I might as well chuck a rod out on the reeds for the night. I've only got a quick night. I've got to be wound in at 7. So that's literally what I did. I put one rod out on the bank, a spot where I'd already had a couple of bites. By this reed, I never even checked to see if the Oxleys were still in there. I just thought, well, I'll chuck a rod there for the night. Chucked a rod there for the night, and at 5:30 the next morning, rod wrapped round, and cut a long story short, it was the bloody Oxleys coming.
There it is again. Wow.
You couldn't write it. You know, sometimes carp can seem very predictable, but other times they're not. But yeah, I mean, it was slightly down in weight from when Darryl caught it a week previously. It was 53 pound 10 ounces.
You like big comments, don't you?
Yeah. But so my theory is that it literally went into that reed bed, sulked for the week, and just as it started to venture back out, it found my little pink pop up on the front of the reeds, and there you go. So for a fish that doesn't usually get caught in the spring and is generally quite rare, we actually both caught it within a week. So there you go. But yeah, it was 53 pound 10 ounces, and that was actually a PB by 2 ounces, because when I caught the Burfield Common, it was well spawned out. It was 53.8.
Yeah, I forgot that. Yeah, because you were shooting.
Yeah. I mean, everyone assumes, Burfield Common 60 pounder. It's not always a 60 pounder. So yeah, it was actually a PB by 2 ounces. Not that mattered, but it absolutely made my spring, made the film, and I don't think we could have asked for a better.
Oh, that was a good phone call to get that one.
That's a mega story, that is, isn't it? Yeah. No, that's great. Wow, guys, that was really good. I mean, I think these mindset films are going to go down well, don't you? I hope
so. Like I said, we've got some. I don't think there'll be a series of films with such incredible big carping and such brilliant stories. So yeah, we've got 3 brilliant films, 3 brilliant storytellers, and you've got the end product.
Right anglers there as well.
Yeah, we've got the end product in every one. Yeah. They've all caught, so from tricky venues. So yeah, it's a bit of a fairy tale year for the mindset. So yeah, looking forward to them to launch.
Well, best of luck with it.
Yeah, cheers.
And best of luck with your fishing as well,
Thank
Tom.
you, Simon.
So are you going to venture back over to Wazing then?
Yeah, I've still got my ticket. Funny enough, although I've caught the big one, there's a mirror in there called Free Scales. It's a shame you ain't got Darryl's picture. Incredible looking fish. It was the fish that actually took me there in the first place. A chap caught it last autumn at £52. And it was when I first saw that picture, that's when I thought I need to fish that lake. That was the fish that I've gone there for, shall I say. This Free Scales. I've never caught a £50 mirror. When Darryl caught it this spring, it was 49.4, but that is sometimes the way in the spring. You know, they take a while to put that weight, build that weight right up before spawning. And I never caught it. In the weeks after, we sort of wrapped the film up. Got it in the bag. And then in the last couple of weeks that I fished there, because it actually shuts in July, Wazing does. It does every year. They have like a summer period where they do maintenance on the lakes. And in the final few weeks I fished that lake, I kept seeing these Free Scales. I felt the one day I came that close to catching it in the edge, and it just really got. I was going to drop my ticket. I thought I've caught the big one. It's a funny place, Wazing. Incredible place. To most people, it'd be a dream ticket, but you sort of drive in your swims. You can use a bait boat, and as much of a novelty that is, it sort of started to bore me in the end. So I was going to drop it, but. Yeah, basically, I'm going on now, but basically I need to catch that Free Scales. So I've still got my Wazing ticket, and I will catch it one day. I don't know when, but yeah, I'll be back for free scales.
I'm
one
sure
day.
you'll catch it, don't you?
I think so, yeah.
I hope so.
All right, guys. Thanks for coming on the show anyway. Bit
cheers,
last
Simon.
minute, so appreciate you guys coming on like this.
No problem at all, Simon.
Okay.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
No, thanks.
Cheers.
The Thinking Tackle Podcast.